A few months ago, in a serendipitous encounter, I chanced upon a captivating podcast, The Engaging Voice with Tara B. Tara Brueske is an outstanding voice teacher, a coach, and extraordinary singer. She exudes both modesty and warmth, with a deep-seated passion for assisting singers in reaching their utmost potential. Since our first conversation, I've affectionately called her Momma because she truly deserves that title. In this episode, I had a great conversation with Momma Tara Brueske about unleashing the power of the female voice. We did experience some small issues with our network connection, but I assure you the conversation is still worth listening to. So, without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, here is the wonderful Tara Brueske. Welcome to another episode of the Making Musical Quantum Leaps podcast.
Well, first of all, I'm Tara Brueske, and which my last name does not look. We pronounce it different than it looks. But
I totally avoid pronouncing that name because
yeah,
I didn't know how.
It's okay.
But I do now, so it's Brueske, right?
Brueske, yeah. It's German in background, so I don't know what they were thinking. But anyway, but yes, and I've grown up. I live in Minnesota in the United States, and I've grown up in a really musical family. I'm the youngest of 3 children, and my whole family started singing together when I was about. Well, I should say we started singing publicly together when I was about 6 years old. My dad is a pastor, and so we were singing at tiny churches throughout Minnesota and a little bit of Ontario, Canada, because that's just right above us, above our state. Anyway, and so I've always had just a really huge love for music and singing, and went to college for it, and got interested in teaching in college. Yeah. Although when I was a young girl, it's funny, I used to play school like I was the teacher. So somewhere back there, I think God was preparing me. And so I started teaching voice. I wasn't even out of college yet, but I started with my first students a long time ago. It's over 30 years ago now. That's crazy. I can say that, but
30 years ago.
Yeah.
That's huge. That's huge. Wow.
Right.
Okay. Go on.
So and I've been singing and performing through the years and been teaching really all through the last 30 years, or 30 something anyway. And I started I started my own podcast, I should say, about 5 years ago, but I just have had that desire to help other singers and just to help them to see the beauty in their own voices. And I've had voice teachers, and I even currently have a voice teacher right now who I've really had great teachers that have encouraged me, but have given me some really great technique and the tools to be able to, just sing with freedom, with confidence, and actually learn to like my own voice. But it's also helped me to be able to sing healthy for this long. My first teacher said to me that she called herself a voice preserver. And I think it was because she wanted us to make sure we could all sing our whole life.
Yes.
Because you can.
Yeah. I see the way people sing, and I tell them the way you sing sounds, because I always tell students that the end point of singing should be you should be able to sing beautifully, conveniently,
yes,
and the way you're singing should ensure longevity. Like you should be able to sing for long throughout your life. So you might sound beautiful and people just love the way you sound, but how healthy is it? How long can you sing that way? People would only love you for they would love you for the way you sound. You might sound strange, and that might be what people like about your singing. But how long can you sing that way? And
Yes.
how long can you sing that way? Truly, vocal coaches should also be called vocal preservers, just like your vocal coach said. We should be able to teach students to sing throughout their lives, not just while
Yes.
they're energetic and I'm talking too much. Let's go on.
That's good.
Let's go on.
Yeah.
Okay.
So would you have a question you want to ask in particular?
Yes. So I've been doing a lot of teaching on my podcast, a lot of stuff on my podcast, and I noticed I've been doing a lot of male, and I think some female students would not be able to relate. So I said, okay, how about I get a female voice teacher so they can actually relate? Yes, so that they can actually relate, because I'm always talking, and if I should give an example, I always want to give the male examples and all that. So
Yes.
What are some key physiological and
Anatomical.
anatomical differences between male and female voices that contributes to their distinct qualities? What are the differences between our vocal organs, our vocal instruments?
Well, first of all, the vocal cords themselves, as far as the size of them, we can compare a male voice about the size of a nickel and a female voice. Now, this would be in American money, obviously, but female voice the size of a dime, which is quite a bit smaller. And the point being that, of course, with male voices, the vocal cords are actually bigger. They have more mass to them. So they're going to produce a different sound, just like if you had, if you think of instruments, well, a tuba is going to sound very different than a flute. By the sheer, the bigness of it, the mass. Yep. And then also, in that, just not only the vocal folds themselves, but with men have the development around their vocal folds where it really becomes the Adam's apple. If you see on their neck, that's very normal, and women don't. So, and part of that again is how it's housing the vocal cords or the vocal folds. They're kind of interchangeable, but so, and also with men and women, normally, the vocal tract for men, again, might be a little bit longer or a little bit wider, because you just think of even body size differences of men and women. Now, obviously, we have all kinds of people are all different, heights, shapes, sizes, but men by nature tend to have even a more space, like a chest cavity that is maybe a little bit bigger with a little more muscle. And so the power behind the voice, as far as the breath, the resonance of how you're getting a sound, can be different than females just by the very body structure that we have. And I also, women's voices, of course, are a higher frequency that they are vibrating at. I think I wrote down here the average male voice vibrates from like 60 to 180 hertz. And for females, it's 160 to 300 hertz. And so when we're even talking about, obviously women having higher voices than men's voices, although tenors, in men's voices can be quite high, and some females have lower voices, but it's still the vibration of the pitch itself. It's different. And so because of even the different vibrations, it's a little bit different timbre of the sound coming out. And even the way sometimes the breath is utilized to vibrate something, if you think of how you're using breath, could be a little bit different.
Due to all these peculiarities, the female voice, is there any challenge that is peculiar to females that is not found in male voices? Are there particular challenges female voices face that male voices do not?
I think just projection. Now, not that females can't sing loud or get their voice out there. I mean, even if you listen to operatic singers, they're usually pretty big voices. But I do think sometimes it's more of not so much a physiological, but a mindset of women feeling that they need to somehow be quieter. At least I've come across that with women teaching sometimes where they think they're singing loud and
Yeah.
they're not even utilizing their whole voice. It's
Yeah.
it's almost like a holding back.
Mm. Yeah.
Um, if that makes sense.
It
And
makes so much sense. It makes so much sense because I've come across students that way too. They think they are so loud, but they're actually not as loud as they think.
yes. And I think they're scared. A lot of times there's
Yes, yes,
like a sense of, oh, I don't want to be too loud.
yes, exactly. That's
And
exactly what a student told me. Like, I don't want to be too loud. They say I'm too loud. I don't want to be too loud. So, yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
yeah, I also think, worship, that at least from women that I've taught, but even other women I've talked to, that sometimes I think they feel like their voice should somehow be lower. Like I've had women say, well, can't I get my voice, much lower? Can I talk in my low end? Or they talk too low for their voice. And again, to me, now this might be something to more the United States. I really don't know, but I think of radio and TV has praised voices that are lower, even in female voices.
Yes, yes.
And so sometimes I feel like women want that. And I think, no, talk in the voice, whatever, if that's here, then talk there. If that's your natural voice, it's going to be the easiest for it, whatever range, God has made you. But I do think that is a challenge more for women than I've seen in the men that I've taught.
You see, there's this, I think society too has, it's partly society fault because
Yes.
you see people appreciate women with lower voices and
Yes.
men with high-pitched voices. So they hear a
Yes.
guy sings with a really pitched voice and they're like, wow, that's extraordinary and beautiful. Then they listen to a lady that sings really low and they're like, wow, she's singing so well. How can a lady sing? So females feel like it's better they sing low than actually sing high because
Yes.
they feel everybody assumes all ladies should sing high, so it's nothing special. So I think there's this intentional. You see sopranos trying to sound like mezzos or altos, and I'm like, why?
Yes.
Why would you want to do that? Just soar. You're a soprano, soar. Then you see them trying to sound as thick and as low as altos, and it's out of place. So it makes so much sense.
Yeah.
I want to ask another question. So,
Sure.
Are there any specific vocal techniques or exercises you find particularly effective in helping those female singers like that have these challenges? Oh,
Yes. To answer your question, I would say, and actually, to be honest, I use these exercises with male voices as well. But I do just want to talk a little bit about the SOVT, semi-occluded vocal tract exercise. Yeah. And what that just means is it just means partially closed. When we talk about occluded, if people are listening, they're going, what is that? So it means that your mouth is somewhat closed. And so it's allowing some back pressure of the air that you send out. It's allowing it to go and kind of almost like stabilize. And so it's very easy for your voice. And also with the SOVTs, and I'll give you examples like a where you're just doing a Z sound, and it's like a buzzing, but all of those also are really steady your breath and to make breath. It takes a lot of breath or that, on a lip buzz. And I think for women, well, men too, but just that's a huge part of, I think, just helping people get stronger and confident as they sing. And then the other thing that I like to do is with slides, any kind of slides, like ooh or ooh, because that tends to help people just with their range, as they're going from low to high or high to low, to where those points in our voice that usually we might call them breaks or maybe Yeah, which is our passaggio area. It just means there's some shifting happening. But to let that be smooth, slides I do all the time with people. And sometimes I'll start from the top and go down.
Yeah.
Ooh, because that's a little easier for people to kind of find it in that kind of hummier feel.
Yes.
But I really think I'm always trying to with women, and like I say, men too, but just trying to get them comfortable with understanding they do need a certain amount of breath support when they're singing.
Yes.
And then to then find that freedom so that they're not afraid of, well, I don't want to sing in that voice up there, or it's harder for me to sing, really low, or whatever that is, to let them know they have access to all parts of their voice when they're singing.
Well, thank you so much. It covers both range and helping them pass through their breaks. But I notice females seldom have issues with breaks. Breaks are more prominent in male voices. There's more breaks in male voices than female voices.
Well, there's both. There's two in both, like two breaks in both male and female. However, you're right that for men, when you're going from your more, I guess I'd call chestier or your low, very low end to the headier, to me, it's a little more pronounced. And some of that, just think about the fact that when people go through puberty, and so men's voices are changing and women's or girls' voices are changing. Girls don't change as much. They do change. They still get a little lower than when they're a little child.
Yeah.
But the male voice, of course, changes much more. It's much bigger. Same for guys, they will tend to struggle more with that first, what we call that passaggio area. For women, we still have it, but I think sometimes people struggle more with kind of the second one when they're going really high, that tends to be a harder place for women. And we have a longer range of notes that are in our, what we call kind of that middle or mixed voice. Yeah. And for men, you tend to have a shorter range of that middle, and then you go immediately into that kind of upper voice, and then you can soar because you have falsetto too.
Wow.
So,
wow, that's it's you. As you keep talking, it's just painting pictures in my mind, because I've been having a lot of contemplation on all those issues, and I'm like, is it like men have more chest than females have more head? Is it that men have more and females have more mix? And you just answered that question just right now. So
yeah, there is, because even if I said it, like if I was going to go like on a piano and say from the notes, like from a C, I don't know if it's a C4 to a C5, I think, but it's like middle C on a piano to the next C. That's usually for a woman. That can all be mixed. And usually for men, maybe half of those notes, it's in that mixed voice. And then you're already changing then to the next upper. But as I mentioned, when you guys are able to sing falsetto, you've got even a long range of falsetto. And women don't. When they get that high, they usually call it more of a whistle register, and not many women can even hit that. So
in the context of contemporary and commercial music, what are some stylistic elements or techniques that can enhance the expressiveness and power of your voice? A lot of females have classical backgrounds, so they sing with this backward placement, and some of them would want to venture into contemporary singing, because contemporary singing like gospel and all that. So what are some of the stylistic elements and techniques that can enhance their expressiveness and just showcase beauty and the power in the female voice?
Well, it's interesting when you're asking that question, because I come from a background where I was more singing in that contemporary genre first, but then went to college and studied in the classical. and utilized both. I do think for even, this is actually true of whatever style, is if you have the first of all, just the breath support like we were talking about,
Mm.
but resonance is also something that gives power to your voice. And resonance is that ability so that when like the sound of the voice, when it comes out your vocal tract, which is your neck, your mouth, it even reverberates a little bit, in your nasal passages, all that sound, if it's very resonant, no matter if it's in like more of a head voice or a chest voice, that's what's going to give power to a sound. So again, starting from this technique, it's not so much about focusing on the back of your throat, but it's focusing on like all the sound, filling up that whole space, whatever space you have. That's going to give you a foundation of sound, just that resonance. Because some people I've noticed, even when they get into contemporary styles, they start getting either too nasal.
Yes.
Or they, where it kind of almost, it's not like that, but it's like, it sounds pinched.
Yeah.
Or their larynx starts coming up. And again, we're trying to first find everything relaxed. But then, of course, the breath also is part of that power. And the breath is the thing that allows us, as you know, to go get louder, softer. Like even to sing quiet is actually not easy. To have energy, like if I was even going to talk quiet or sing very quiet. Yes. And so that is what actually allows us to be expressive. But I do think for people, if they have come from a traditional classical background, maybe they find that style of, like you say, more gospel. I think of it then more of just starting low, like in their lower end, in their speaking voice. Because most people still speak lower, right?
Yes.
And because like I don't talk here, even though I sing here,
It's actually rare to find people that sing up there.
Right. But they don't talk super, super high. Wherever they talk, that vibration we feel here in our chest, that's where, if you can just start having people talk through something, like if they're singing, nobody knows the trouble I've seen, and they sing, they say, nobody knows, nobody knows, nobody knows. Just saying it, sing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's thank you so much. I as you keep talking, I'm just picturing a particular student. I hope she listens to this. This is just this is just medicine to that's her.
Yes.
So let's talk about vocal health.
Okay.
Lots of ladies have issues with their vocal health. How do you approach this topic of vocal health and with your female students? Are there any specific observations they should keep in mind?
Well, and I think of this is true, male or female. I'm going to say it honestly, because to me, it's just taking care of the voice. And I'm sure you know all this stuff, but just the things I have found that I kind of reiterate with my students is, making sure, are they actually getting a good night's sleep? Because sleep is actually huge for everything working well, in just our physical body. And the voice is physical. So, but of course, just finding, paying attention to how does your voice feel after you've sung for a while? Are you finding out, does it feel tired? Does it feel scratchy? Does it feel pretty good? Because if your voice starts to feel tired or scratchy, that's telling you that there's probably something you're doing. You may not know what it is, but something that is maybe creating some tension in your voice, or just it's whatever it is, it's making your voice more tired than it needs to be. And so really paying attention to that, paying attention to the flexibility of your voice. If you find that maybe, and I find this in older singers at times, if they have done singing for a while or come back to it, they feel like their flexibility has gotten really bad. But if you think about our body, and the flexibility, like if I raise my arm, and as people get older, that can be harder to do too, or, twisting it. So we want to make sure that is still very flexible. And there's exercises you can do for that. But that's kind of a test too of, am I taking care of my voice well if there's still some flexibility in it? just like your body. Another thing would be just simply, obviously, staying hydrated.
Yeah.
Like not just taking water before you sing, but just as much water as you can get
That's
in your body all
possible.
the time.
Mm.
Yes, as possible. Um, and I think also just talking in your range, because before I was saying how like females sometimes feel like they should be talking down here.
Yeah.
Now if I talk down here all the time, I'm going to fry my voice
Yes.
and it's not going to stay healthy. I need to talk in the range I should. um, but I think those are the things that are really wise, just to take care of your
Yes.
voice in general.
I often I tell students, comes to issues with vocal health, I tell them, are there
Okay.
any misconceptions or myths surrounding the female voice that you frequently encounter? And how do you address them with your students?
Yes. One main one that I have seen, and I'd say this has been more in the last 15 years versus when I first started teaching, but it is especially singing in pop music of today, popular music, contemporary music. I feel like women, especially younger girls, teenagers, they feel like they have to sing so big, like with this huge voice.
Yes.
And and I would compare that to maybe like here like an Aretha Franklin or Whitney
Mm,
Houston.
mm.
And the thing is, they had big voices and they were beautiful, but for a lot of girls it's like they have to just
They are
belt
under
everything.
pressure. Yes, they are under so much pressure to belt and oh,
Yes. And constant and shows, and I'll admit I do watch shows like American Idol and The Voice.
mm,
So I enjoy watching. However, when people are on those shows, at the end even they might sing, maybe 6 songs in a night.
mm,
But that's so different than having to like be in a theatrical production where it's two
uh,
hours or a concert that's 2 hours. And so they can't keep that up, that belting style in that way, because it makes them hoarse. It makes their voice tired.
yes.
And that's probably the biggest thing I see. And I think it's a myth because also not everybody needs to have that big of a voice. Like there's beauty in whatever voice you possess. If it's simple and quiet or just sweet or pure, it's fine. It's
Oh,
beautiful. So,
oh,
so I,
I'm sorry. I'm just so excited. Like, I'm so happy you're saying this because, like, I would say it in Nigeria or let me say Africa. Have you listened
yeah.
to singers from? I think you should after this pod. Listen to gospel singers from Nigeria, especially the females.
Okay.
You'll notice everybody is about a belt. Every singer wants to belt. They just want to growl and belt, and they're putting other upcoming vocalists under pressure because now people, I don't know, but I think it's based on the audience. Maybe they feel the audience would not be moved or the audience would not be blessed if they do not
Right.
if they do not have that big and powerful voice. But it's really a myth that should be cancelled. It's really a myth. So how do you address this with your students? Because I really want them to hear this. How do you address this?
Well, the thing that usually that I've tried to do with them is just, first of all, to get exercises to even hear what is their natural voice?
Hmm.
What actually feels the most normal for them? Because I think if like let's say that they don't have that really big voice to begin
Yeah.
with. I don't have a cranking voice. Like
Hmm.
I have what would be more of a lyrical voice. And
Yeah.
that's fine. That's the way God's made me. But what I try to do is just I will choose music sometimes purposefully
Hmm.
that is not the kind that belts. I might choose something like a simple folk song or something with a limited range so that we can just help them to hear
Hmm.
what is just this natural voice sound like. And then get them to feel it. Like, how do they feel when they're singing it? Because I think with that pressure, they're so used to everything having to be belted, and it's even like so much energy, and then their voice feels tired. And I want them to see what it feels like to not have a tired voice, or to make sound, that is unique to them. Because that's the other thing. I'm trying to always help them find their voice is absolutely unique, just like our fingerprints. So the more that they can sound like themselves, and maybe that does mean they belt at times, but maybe not for everything. And I try to help them too, to say, how do you talk to somebody? Do you talk to somebody in a really loud voice all the time?
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes we do when we're excited, or no, I mean,
singing should be
sometimes
like talking. It should be like communication. And I keep telling people, you don't shout every time. It should be all shades of different colors. There are some times where you
yes,
just whisper something. You are like, hey
yes,
there. So I'm trying to say something really intimate. I should sound
yes,
really intimate with my voice, not growly and belty. So this singing should be about communication. So do you shout at people every time? Do you go, hey, hey? It doesn't make
right,
sense. So wow, please go on, go on, go
yes.
on. Yeah, it's oh,
It's,
wow.
but it is, I will say, it is kind of helping them find a mindset shift, because
Mm,
sometimes it's trying to show them the beauty in their own voice in this like quieter way. And again, it might be that maybe we do talk to them about, how would you sing this to holding a little baby?
mm.
You wouldn't shout at them.
Yeah,
And so just helping them to think, like you said, the different
yeah.
colors of their voice.
Wow, wow, wow. This is so much. Our time is almost gone. So I'm going to do something now. I'm going to compress all these questions and just see how we can answer
Sure.
them all at once. Okay. Now,
Okay.
you've spoken a little about resonance and breath support. So I'm not going
Mm-hmm.
to talk about that. I'm just going to um okay, how to build confidence in female singers, because females, I don't know, they get intimidated when they meet guys that can actually sing. When they meet men that can, yeah, when they're in the midst of men that can actually sing. So you hear guy does something with his voice. It's not as pitched as, just because he's a guy, so it sounds really high pitched because he's putting so much support and there's so much volume. Then you ask this lady, sing it. She's like, no, it's too high. Come on, how can a guy sing high? But there's this intimidation and all that. So how do you inspire confidence in female singers that feel they do not just trust their voice, probably because they hear a guy who can really do things that they expect only ladies to be able to do? That's one. Let me compress it all together. We've spoken about vocal health already, so I'm not going to ask that. Then share any success stories or memorable experience of any female singer you've coached that overcame specific vocal hurdles and achieved notable growth in their abilities. This is like, this is what vocal coaches live for. Just
Yeah.
you're able, yeah, that's what we live for. That's what we live for. You're able to just teach and they understand, and there's
Yes.
so much growth and impact. So I think that'll be
I can, yes, let me address. So just the first thing about, if
confident.
women feel, yeah, confidence,
Mm,
again, trying to let them know, like if we think of an orchestra, we
mm,
think of a band, there are instruments that are higher, there are instruments that are lower. They have their own beautiful, unique sound. If I hear a flute played or a saxophone, that's going to sound different, than a bass guitar, or drums. And so there is beauty in every single timbre, like
mm,
tone of voice. And they all fit together too. Like if you hear a whole band together, each instrument's doing its part. You
yeah,
hear a whole choir together, each vocalist is doing their part, so it sounds
mm,
beautiful.
beautiful.
So yeah, so trying to help them understand that. And honestly, just personally, when I teach, one thing that I've always done as a voice teacher, I had it modeled to me from my own teachers and
Yeah.
my own mother too, because my mother was a piano teacher.
Oh, come
Um,
on.
yeah, but it is to find, when I listen to them sing, always I'm listening for something that they already do well.
Mm.
And I start with that point. Now, that doesn't mean that we don't deal with some things that are harder for them, but to
Yeah.
find the piece that is already good and to let them know this sounds great. I'm so
Mm.
glad you're doing this already, and then build on it.
Mm.
Because to me, that's letting them know, hey, I'm okay for one thing, you know, and then they can become more and more confident the more skills they have. And I'll just give you an example actually now of two people. So I had one girl, she was 13 when she came to me, and I had already had her older sister, and her older sister had quite a beautiful voice.
Mm.
And so I don't know if, she would compare herself to her sister. I don't know. But when she first came, her voice sounded a little bit harsh and not actually very pretty at the beginning. She studied with me for 5 years. She worked very hard. She practiced. She was willing to learn. And her voice developed where she had more confidence. She had more freedom. And she sounded so beautiful. She had so much more resonance through the years. And by the time she graduated from high school, she actually got one little one story. And then let me just share one other quick one too. I had an older lady who was around 74, 75 when she started with me. And she just said she wanted to learn more. And her voice in about 7 years not only got stronger, because, as people age, you'd think it might get weaker. Her voice got stronger. She felt more confident, and she ended up recording 2 albums to give to her family of her singing.
That's really amazing. I've had so much. This podcast has really been an amazing. I'm getting emotional already. It's
Okay.
it's been amazing. Thank you so much. We're gonna
It's
stop.
my pleasure.
We're going to stop here. Even though we're going to talk all day, I really enjoy talking with beautiful minds like you. Thank you so much. Okay, so we're going to stop here. Okay, one more word before we end the
Yes.
podcast. Just say something to a vocalist out there, female, that is working on her voice and is probably getting frustrated and tired already. So just a word of encouragement, and that would be what we'll end this podcast with.
Okay. If you are someone, a female who is singing, and maybe you don't really love your voice yet, maybe you're feeling frustrated because you have certain things that they just keep staying the same and you can't get past something, please know, first of all, your voice is beautiful to begin with. You are a gift of God. He has created you with a certain voice that he's given you, and we can always learn, and we will, and continue to improve, and just keep going, because singing is a lifelong thing, and it's also a lifelong learning process.
Yes.
I'm still learning. Others are still learning, and it's so good. And do not give up hope and try to enjoy the things of your voice that you already know you can do, and just keep going forward from there.
Oh, thank you so much. Okay, that'll be all.
You're welcome.
Stop saying thank you. Okay, well, thank you so much, Mama. Yeah.
Can I have a question, just quick question for you?
Okay, okay,
Because, and this is a Nigerian question, I think.
okay, okay.
When you say mama, is that a sign of respect there?
Yes, 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 yes.
I ask this because when my mother was she was in a nursing home this last year. She passed away actually,
Um,
but when she was in this nursing home, there was a couple of people that were from Nigeria, and they would
yes.
call her mama, and I didn't know why. I thought I thought it was sweet, but I thought, because I called her mama because she's my mom.
It's
So
it's totally a Nigerian thing. When we call people Mama,
I like it.
we respect them so much. We call people Papa.
Yeah.
So we're like,
Oh,
Papa.
I like that.
Yeah,
I had to ask.
It's totally
I like
a
it.
Nigerian thing. It's totally a Nigerian thing.
That's
Okay, well,
wonderful.
thank you so much, Ma. I really
You're
hope
welcome,
to
worship.
see you again.
Loved this episode of the Quantum Lips podcast? Head over to Spotify, Podbean, or Google Podcasts to subscribe, rate, and leave a review. It's very much appreciated. Thank you.